mentioned, my name is Adam Wilson. I'm the lead DevOps engineer at Fluent, based in our office here in Brighton. And for the past year, I've been building an international DevOps team. The year was 2018, hence the name of the presentation. Right. So I thought I'd start off. I had a bit of interesting previous experience, which I think I've ended up coming back to, believe it or not, quite often in the past year. I was actually quite fresh out of university at the time and hired to take on an IT change project that was going on here at Brighton Dome Festival, which I'm sure some of you might know is one of the older venues around. I wouldn't necessarily call it crusty, but there's some crusty elements going on there. So yeah, we were kind of implementing a new system that was going to revolutionise the way that the information flowed between the different departments. It was going to make it more reliable, more available, more scalable, like all that kind of good stuff. What it was basically was a new diary system, which is the most important way that they had information going around their company. At the time, it was incredibly easy for me to pull it was hard, but it was easier than what I'm doing right now. Because if I wanted to find the people with a slightly more open mind that were going to be taking on the new technology and helping me to pull this thing off, I could just walk from my office, float sort of through the gardens, pop into the venue and wander around. My big problem right now is that everybody's everywhere, and I've got unfortunately quite a limited travel budget. So I've got to find some other ways of trying to pull off the same kind of change that we did at the Dome on a kind of much grander, I guess, scale. So just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with at the moment, this is a good idea of what we've got going on in production right now. Probably the most important part in terms of where we want to make the most changes right now is down in this bottom corner with the VMware. Ant is probably also going to go the way of the Dodo. And, we've even got some really interesting, there's a whole interesting history of some of our Perl applications as well. But we've got a really talented operations team that just keep all of this running, and the developers throw all kinds of rubbish at them, and give them their due, they're just bloody well at keeping it going. So what does my team do? I was actually hired in February this year, as I said, on my own, to try and do an uplift of one of our particular parts of our software suite. Our entire suite is a kind of recruitment, talent acquisition, talent management, kind of this entire journey of getting people in the door, helping to kind of upskill them while they're in your company. And this could be for kind of lots of different multinationals that have got all sorts of different compliance that they need to comply with all across different countries. And yeah, large, complex products. I don't see the UI very much, so I don't really know what a lot of them do. I don't need to. But yeah, we've got some hangovers. So broadly speaking, in terms of the stuff that was there when I kind of walked in the door, it's over to the left. We're trying to move across to more of the stuff that's over towards me, which is why we've got some of these products that overlap. Like we've got Drone, Bamboo, and Jenkins that effectively all achieve the same kind of thing. So we had a kind of history of lots of different Scrum teams all innovating in their own special way and not really talking to each other, and having completely distinct budgets and completely different ways of doing things, which is why we've ended up with so many overlapping things with license costs going completely mad. So a lot of these products we're using without licenses. I think GitLab's probably one of the ones that we are using the licenses with. But yeah, none of this. Say most of this isn't actually running in production right now. This is all of our kind of greenfield pipeline projects. So what do I mean when I say international? So this is a broad overview of the offices that we deal with on a daily basis. So the DevOps team, all the guys that report into me, are spread out across Brighton, Waltham and Raleigh in North Carolina. But we also sit inside the software architecture team. So we've got this kind of joint effort going on at the moment where we've got the architecture team as a whole making our products more ready for the cloud, while our team specifically tries to make the cloud a bit more ready for our products. But we're also, we're spread across Brighton, Waltham and Raleigh. Architecture team is spread across those, plus we've also got some guys in Austin. And we're currently hiring for a DevOps engineer in Hong Kong, because one of our larger software engineering teams is out in Hong Kong. We work with them constantly on a daily basis. We're doing a massive uplift. They'd never even done anything to do with AWS or really cared about it before we came in and started getting involved. So we're spending a lot of our time changing things for them at the moment. So that's kind of it. So yeah, in terms of how these cities affect the working cultures and hiring across all of these cities, Raleigh is actually an interesting one. It's probably not one I would have visited had I not ended up in this role, but I'm kind of glad I did. It's quite an interesting city. I don't know if it counts as deep south, but it's certainly southern in the States, but it's absolutely chock-a-block with some of the tech companies that you see up there. I don't know if the top two should be one bullet point now. I don't know what's going on there, but that has an effect when you're trying to hire people, especially when, like I said, limited travel budget. I can't fly out there every time I need to do an interview for the guys in Raleigh, so you're doing a lot of that stuff, just looking at the code that they're able to send to you, what you're able to glean from Skype calls, and the few people that I trust to kind of take that decision and make recommendations based on face-to-face meetings out there. But as a result of those kind of companies, that changes the working culture and the kind of technology that people really care about. There's a lot of Cisco in that office. Hong Kong, in comparison to Raleigh, where they're big tech companies, so they're not necessarily the sort of small, innovative little startups. But you can sort of on a daily basis go to DevOps meetings like this, but in the Red Hat offices, and they do quite a lot of outreach and training and all that kind of thing. It's a massive Red Hat amphitheatre where they do live events out there. Whereas Hong Kong is a completely different beast. I couldn't find any really good data to back this up. This is just based on my experience working with that office. So feel free to send me horrible messages on Twitter if I get this completely wrong. But my gut feel is that, much like the UK, funnily enough, they've got a lot of their economy revolves around the banking sector, which means that things like fintech and the banks are really, really important. And I think, as Alex alluded to, those aren't necessarily places that we associate with fast innovation. Some of them are probably improving, but the overall impression I've got is that things are a little bit slower, a little bit more conservative there. One of the things that really took me by surprise, actually, when I first started working with the guys in Hong Kong, is they have a very high loyalty to their line manager. When my director of technology first went out to the Hong Kong office and started trying to talk to people there, quite often people would either not speak to her or would actually turn their backs, because it was seen as not the right thing to do, to go around your line manager and talk to people above them. So doing outreach and trying, especially in what I'm trying to do with the DevOps role, I want to speak directly to the engineers and work with them and try and find the people that are really going to help me pull this change off, the people with the really open minds that are interested in the new technology. So sometimes that communication can be challenging. So that's something I wasn't prepared for. This is what I mean when I say an international team. It's people working probably from multiple working cultures, multiple cultural backgrounds, but they're all in the same team, kind of reporting into the same line manager, working in the same way, not, the UK office and the Hong Kong office and the US office. It's the DevOps team that happens to be spread around that office. So in terms of our team structure, as a DevOps team, because everyone has a slightly different definition, I think, of what DevOps means. I know when I was first brought in, it was just, you do Linux and cloud and stuff, so off you go. So we're currently kind of sitting down at the bottom here, trying to build the DevOps capabilities, do the proof of concepts, show people particularly, we do 99% of our time at the moment is spent writing Terraform, because it's really easy to build and then to show, to train our operations team in, to do that outreach, and it's kind of a really easy, low-hanging fruit win for some of the things that we're struggling with at the moment. So this is probably where we're sitting right now. I should imagine as time goes on, we'll start to change and mould, and once we've built out a few more bodies, we'll probably move through all sort of different things on this. So this is from the Puppet State of DevOps team. But yeah, so that's probably where we are right now. So what are the benefits? There's certainly some downsides to working in this international team structure. Some of the benefits are, anyone that's worked in operations will know, having a good spread of time zones is very nice when you're dealing with users that are spread across those time zones. I really don't want to be woken up at 2 a.m. Because Hong Kong's Jenkins server has decided not to do what it's supposed to do, and things like that. So yeah, having a spread of time zones helps. Trying to, like I mentioned right at the start, trying to pull off this centralised change across multiple office locations spread all around the world is just, I feel, not going to be doable unless we actually have the face of the change available in the offices for people to go up and ask and talk to and pull into meetings and all of that kind of thing, and kind of be there for them, and that helps to kind of unify what we're trying to do. If we do our hiring right, we do get a wider range of perspectives. We're very lucky in that Brighton, is a great city to be based in. But coming back to Raleigh as well, where I've done a lot of hiring, it is amazing how people do just move across the entire US to move to a city like Raleigh, because it's seen as so desirable. It's like one or two on the sort of most desirable places to live in the US. It's a really great place to run a tech company from, and yeah, as a result, you kind of draw on. I've had people move away from Virginia down, California. We get applications all over the place. People are just willing to up sticks and move, which is great. They also, Raleigh and Brighton have plenty of people from around the world that move to them, so you end up with a really good wide range of perspectives directly in your stand-ups every single day. And because of the way that this kind of comes together, how the chips fall, you end up with a good blend of individuality and empowerment. But what I mean is, so within our office, there might only be, or within your office, there might only be one or two people that is part of our team or that does what we do. A lot of the history of the company and the changes that haven't been made for years and years and years have meant that it's got really, coming back to that word, crusty. There's a lot of people that have maybe wanted to try and do some technical innovation but haven't been allowed, and so have had to move on. There's been a high amount of churn, and it means that there's quite a low knowledge base of new technology out there. So a real good understanding of how to make the cloud work for you and not just cost more. And so having people in the offices as sort of one or two means that they get that kind of, they are amongst the people that they talk to every day, the expert in the field, and that couples with the fact that they're empowered because they're still part of this whole team. Still get to chat to everybody. If they run into a problem, they want to do a bit of code changes, that they haven't got a clue how to proceed, they can just do a work in progress mode report, stick something on the chat and say, can someone give me a hand here, and we'll work on it. So it gives you that good kind of blend. Alongside the first part of this presentation, I thought I'd go through some of the mistakes that I've made through this year, and if anyone's kind of considering this as an idea, in terms of a good team structure, some things that I recommend you don't do. Something I did right at the beginning was completely underestimate how excellent a really good chat application is in this kind of team. I mean, Slack, I think it's brilliant, You just set it up, you get sensible defaults. Unfortunately, this being the real world, I can't use everything that I want. So I'm made to use GChat, and it's okay. In my opinion, it does some things pretty well. It's not Slack, but it is pretty good. But this kind of chat application is great when anyone's remote, but when it's an international team and you get such little face-to-face contact between people, you live and die on this kind of stuff. So this is a rule that we have for meetings. It's something that I put in with my team right from the start, and it's now something that has been enforced across all of our software teams because they're all kind of adopting more and more of this international team dynamic. And it's if one person is remote, everyone is. When I first started the role, there was nothing more frustrating than being pulled into meetings about major software changes and just being a robot on the table while everyone else is in the room. It ends up with a massive sort of disproportion in terms of your communication abilities. And it's fine on like the one-off. But when it's every day and when you want to get real work done, like on a consistent basis, this is a massive game changer. In our stand-ups, I might be sitting right next to somebody else in the Brighton office. We might both be on the same call. We will not speak outside of the call. It means that, especially if I'm running the team from the UK, the guys in the US, or in the future the guys in Hong Kong, don't feel like they're just kind of making all the decisions over there without me. And it helps to kind of make sure that you've got that equality that you might not otherwise get. So does anyone know who this is? So I'm going to be honest, I know this is basically the only person in football I could name from just looking at their face. But there's an interesting story about Sven from Sven Goran Eriksson, old England manager, I think. There's an interesting story about him in one of my old business textbooks. I keep coming back to now, and I think it's the evidence this year has only kind of proven it more true. One of the parts of the story is that apparently he never really raised his voice or shouted. A kind of good example of, if a team is doing its job right and you've got people that care, conflicts will arise. And if you start trying to shout over the top of people, you'll just get muted when you're all remote. It's very easy to just take your headset off and walk away. It gets you absolutely nowhere. So, keeping that kind of cool head and dealing with conflict in that kind of constructive way is absolutely key. And the other one is that with a football manager, you've got a whole team of professionals that have been honing their craft for their entire lives. All they know is football, they do is football, and they're really good at it. That's why they're there. I kind of feel like if you're hiring properly in a DevOps team, you should have that same culture of people that know what they're doing and you can trust them. And with an international team, again, this is something that is key for any kind of DevOps team, but particularly when it's international, you need that two-way trust between yourself and your team. Otherwise, it's all going to fall apart rather quickly. Be prepared for cultural differences. So this is something that took me completely by surprise. I like to think of myself, I'm sure all of us do, as a pretty personable guy. I get on with most people I meet in international cities and when I travel. It's fine, but it's when you come down to the real crunch moments, when people are having crises or they don't know where they want to go with their career, where they're reaching out to you, and it's important for you to know to know this kind of stuff. And just be aware that it's going to happen. One of the things that took me by surprise was not appreciating the differences between the way that we think about pensions and the way that the guys in the US think about their 401ks. It's a slightly different kind of situation there. It's much more of a kind of precious thing to protect, is what I feel like I've been getting. And the only way that you're going to get through this kind of stuff is by really trying to sort of hot up on your emotional intelligence, doing that active listening and just being aware that you need to sit down and have those conversations, sort of set aside longer time, all management, you need to set aside some time to deal with your team, but when they're all international, I've lost afternoons to one-to-one meetings, and I'm perfectly happy to do that because it's absolutely key to keeping things going the rest of the time. And yeah, just a few more sort of quick tips that I thought I'd race through that I definitely think can apply to all of us. If you're working in an international company or in a big company and you want to do any kind of change, you're going to need executive allies. They're the people with the purse strings. They're the people that can help you come out of that constant flow of firefighting and get the opportunity to do the change and hold that back from you. Get them as high as you possibly can in the company. Be clear to those allies about the kind of team you're building. So, like I said at the beginning, everyone's got a different definition of what DevOps is, how to put it off, and how to achieve it. And it's important that your team understands what they're doing and what's expected of them, and what your executive allies are going to expect back for all of the help that they're giving you and all of the space and the money. International epic collaboration as well. This is something that I feel like we still need to do some more of, actually. If you're working to sprints and epics, as probably most people in this room are, getting the people across, making sure that the people across offices are working on the same epics together. Basically about having a clear goal and having people from different parts of the team see how they're able to contribute back to achieving those goals. It's important everywhere, but it is another one that I think is particularly important for the international team setup. When you're in the offices and you do get those rare visits, make sure you go out. Get to know when the office socials are. Our Raleigh office, for example, they always go out on a Thursday. There's a really nice bar just next to the office, so go to those socials. It's a much better place to actually get to know people than the office, or meet people in the teams that you might not have a direct project on with at the moment, and you can refer back to it if you chat to people for the first time over a G chat. It does make a lot of difference if you can say, have you been to the place was in Raleigh now, but Cowfish. There's some absolutely mad restaurants in that city. So if you get a chance to go to Raleigh, go to Cambridge. It's amazing. That's kind of everything I've got to say together today. Sorry. Try not to let your software certificates expire, because you might cut an entire nation off from their 4G. Apart from that, that's it. Any questions?
Quick question. So, is there a common time zone between like UK and US and Hong Kong?
Oh yes, this is why I should have had my notes and not just done it from memory. Yes, there is. So, for example, between Raleigh and Hong Kong, there is 12-hour difference. Between Hong Kong and Austin, there's a 13-hour difference. This is why it's absolutely ideal to be in the UK to do this kind of job. Because when, we've actually got a good portion of our hosting team actually are in Nashville. So if Nashville and Hong Kong need to have a meeting, it's 5 a.m. for somebody, it's 9 o'clock at night for the other people, and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon for me. I can keep those meetings going for a lot longer than the other guys. There's another one, the whole other thing as well is that Hong Kong don't actually do daylight savings time, and the Americans do their daylight savings time like a week before us. So there's this entirely mad week, especially when you've got people flying between the offices. You've got no idea what's going on. Everyone's like 2 hours out. It's a massive pain.
With the send slide, send the team do what they do. How do you kind of control? One of the first things you said is we've got this technology and that technology and that technology and that technology. Do you need to kind of manage centrally a bit? Kind of, that's fine, go and try that, but everyone else does it this way. Do you kind of
Yeah, I mean we're in a funny situation where we're kind of all of our projects are uplifts of brownfield technology. So these are things that we've been running for 17 years, like these 17-year-old, like the absolute epitome of waterfall monolithic Java applications, right? And we're kind of trying to come in and go from 0 to 160 in the space of a few months. So we've got, in terms of control, I think Terraform is probably and Git obviously, are my primary forms of control because, if we're writing the original Terraform modules, I don't know how familiar you are with it, but you can kind of write repeatable parts of code that, if you run that Terraform module, you will always get that stack out of it. Right? So as long as we're kind of writing the original infrastructure as code, people are reusing that stuff. I'm also quite, I don't know the right word for it, but fairly controlling about what ends up in our master branches. So I'm absolutely wedded to the idea of infrastructure as code. So, if it's not in the master branch, it doesn't really go anywhere. And it's certainly not going to go into the AWS account. So that's kind of my primary mechanism for control, really. Good one.
You kind of, and do you get the kind of final say on when stuff gets added into?
Yeah. We have got a really. So it's one of those interesting budgets where we've got to do the re-architecture of the software in order for me to know what we're going to need on the hardware side of things, or on the VM side of things, in order for it all to come about. So I have had to build in a hell of a lot of contingency, which means that we've got a reasonable amount of freedom, but I can't just let it be. I think Netflix we're talking about. It sounds like it's just a free for all for them. Like everyone has access to everything. I can't really be like that at all. So we need some kind of control of like if people need access to AWS, they come to us and we write the Terraform to spin it up. That's kind of it really. The master branches are key control mechanism.
Thank you very much, Adam.